Hey friends, Kambria Evans here with the Zero Disturbance Podcast. We are in our series, Why Women Go to Therapy. And this has been so much fun for me to think about, talk through with all of you. I'm learning as we go. And it's been so wonderful for me to really show up fully as myself, sharing my own experiences and my own EMDR therapy in personal and professional life, bringing to you the themes of learning that I have seen in my clinical practice, supporting both men and women. It literally alleviates the angst in my body about what's happening in the world right now, that I can come on here and share with all of you for free, wherever you live, wherever you are, whatever you're going through, all the things that I'm learning, all the things I know, in an effort to support women and make the world a safer, more peaceful, productive place. And today we're going to talk about another one of my favorite topics when it comes to women, which is women and urges. And the word urges is interesting to me. I think it really kind of goes back to what we've been talking about around how do we listen to our bodies? How do we know who we are? How do we know what we want? How do we know what we don't want? I love the expressions that I've been using lately of like, I'm only going to do something if it's a full body yes. And I'm definitely not going to do something if it's a full body no. And for us to use our bodies as measuring systems for our decisions is really powerful. Because as women, we have this highly intuitive system by design, right? We've been told and we've been brainwashed into thinking we're hysterical. Thank you so much to Freud for giving us that as like an actual diagnosis for women of hysteria. Women have been disconnected from their sanity, clarity, urges, desires, wishes, identity for forever, right? By men telling us we're crazy. That's one of the favorite expressions, people say in smear campaigns about women, especially when women call out men for abuse. And I think that we can still honor our emotions and we can feel proud of them because they're part of our alarm system, part of our information system that we have by design. But I kind of feel like, what if we just got even more somatic? What if we got even more powerful and just went straight to the body, right? A full body yes, a full body no. I'm going to use my body to guide my urges. And why, as a woman, is this such an act of self-love and revolution? It's because we have been trained, we have been programmed since birth to not follow our urges, right? I see this with kids with neurodivergence in school systems, right? Sit still, stop fidgeting, stop moving around. Your body's not supposed to do that. Or something's wrong with you because your body does want to do that, right? Now, of course, we all have urges. Of course, we all want to do things. That's not wrong or bad. And of course, there is a decision when we feel an urge in our body to move away from something. We talked in our last episode about disgust and how it helps us safely distance from disgusting things that are not safe. Our bodies are always giving us urges, full body yeses, full body nos. And what we do with that information matters. I didn't think about my body or what my body wanted to do or didn't want to do until I started to work with my EMDR therapist, who's amazing. She was trained in like somatic experiencing and somatic training. So it wasn't just EMDR, it was really understanding like what's happening in your body. And of course, if you're an EMDR clinician or a brain spotting clinician, you know that we take the body with us, right? We're not just doing talk therapy. We're using the body with information in the body to inform what is next. And what was so beautiful was in my first session with Nicole, this is like before COVID, she literally dropped me into my body. We were on the phone. I was at a retreat in Tahoe with a bunch of therapists. And she said to me, "What are you noticing in your body?" And I was like, okay, we'll do that. We'll do this. We'll do it this way, right? Because I was highly EMDR trained, but this wasn't part of the focus. And she said to me, "Notice your body." And I said, "I feel this flutter," right? And we really got curious about what was happening in my body I wasn't even aware of. Right? And this was the beginning of me getting to understand how my body has information inside of it for me all the time. And it was a realization for me to understand that even though I'm highly educated, I'm a therapist, EMDR trained, all the things, I wasn't living like this. Why? Well, I think the go-to answer a lot of people have is because you had trauma, so you're not in your body. Okay, that might be true for some people, but let me just give you a different brand. Y'all, most of us have had trauma, okay? I don't care if it's one thing or multiple things or a relationship with a parent, whatever it is. Show me one person who hasn't had trauma. This message that like trauma is dissociating you from your body. Have y'all looked around the world we live in? Like, we are all in trauma. We were in COVID. We are now, right? Very few people, if any, have never had anything traumatic happen to them. We need to change the narrative, okay? All of us on a spectrum in one way or another have been told or programmed to disconnect from our body, especially as women, right? Women are told, don't get angry. That's part of our alarm system of information. Boys are told, don't cry, right? So this is something we all have to think about, okay? What's happening inside my body and why do I care? Why does it matter, right? Those are questions that will have to be answered in order to get to the questions people ask in my office. Who am I? What do I want? How do I know what I really want, right? It's amazing when you learn how to go into your body and go into your urges, notice them and not cut them off, and do experiments to actually follow your urges. Full body yes, full body no. When you start to live like that, it's like you're on a different planet. You are on a different planet because you are not stuck in the programming in your head of, well, I should do this. I'm responsible for this and I want to be good. And this person told me I can be good like this. And I want to be successful. And this person told me I can be successful like this. And we're all out of our bodies. Like, this is just chaos noise, right? My favorite interweave right now, and has been for a long time when I do EMDR, is notice the urge. Whenever we find a part of us in processing, I don't care what emotion it has, sad, angry, confused, notice the urge. We do a set. What are you noticing now? This part of me wants to hide. Follow the urge. Play it out. Let that part hide. This part wants to fight back. Play it out. Let that part fight back. When we allow ourselves to notice our urges of any part of us, when we allow ourselves to play out the urge in EMDR processing or real life, right? Something profound happens. All of the noise about who we're supposed to be and what we're supposed to do and all of the programming, it gets really quiet. It gets so peaceful. All we're listening to, maybe for the first time in your full life, right, is what my body wants to do. That's it. Now, something amazing, I think, happens for people in midlife when they realize their body wants to do something different than it has been doing or is supposed to do. Okay? And people have what's called, a midlife crisis, and make big decisions because they're following an urge. And, everyone gets to make their own choices. It's not wrong or bad if it's not hurting somebody. But I get really curious when people complain about people's decisions and following urges. My question is always, what happens if you don't? What happens if you don't follow the urge to go feel a positive feeling state of safety, of more aliveness, of more controlled choices and power? What happens if you don't follow the urge? Well, I know y'all have heard of these stats, but I can remind you, women have got so many autoimmune disorders and chronic diseases. And a theory working around in the trauma community is, well, yeah, all the repressed emotions, all the repressed anger, all the things unsaid, even to themselves, all of the urges not followed, all of the parts of self that don't get to come out, that don't get to live. When we have a midlife crisis, I think it's a part of us that has been squeezed by all the other parts that think they're supposed to be who I am. And when something is squeezed and it wants to come out, I get curious about that part. What do you want to say? What are you longing for? What do you want to do? What's the urge? Follow it, play it out. And what I love about doing EMDR therapy for myself and for my clients is I get to play out in my own EMDR therapy parts of myself that I cannot play out in my real life. And then we get curious about what parts can I play out in my real life? What parts of me want to make space to be alive and get played out in reality? What a beautiful question. Because if we think about it, an urge is just a part of us that wants to develop. An urge is just a part of us that has been squeezed, pushed down, and hidden. And it's interesting to me how much space people give their urges, right? How we can have an over response or an overdeveloped part come in and say, I'm going to take up all the space, right? You see this sometimes with men often where they're like, I'm going to leave my wife. I'm going to get someone younger. I'm going to get a sports car. I'm going to get hair implants. I'm going to start over and I'm going to do it this way this time. And I get curious, if women were allowed to follow their urges their whole lives, if they were allowed to follow their urge of pleasure, of control, of power, of being in whatever comes up with no judgment, if they were allowed to just follow their urges of creativity and curiosity, I think that they would show up more authentically, and partnership, whether it's a friendship or a marriage or a business relationship, it would just be clearer. We would all just know ourselves before we hit midlife, right? A lot of us don't get to know who we really are in our 20s and 30s as we're partnering and making these big contractual commitments with each other because we never got to do that. We were just following the programming and pushing down the urges, not even knowing we had them. Or if we did know we had them, it was bad. It was bad to have them. And ladies, what would the men be like if they were allowed to follow their urges? It'd be interesting to see how men really see themselves and us. It would give us all like clarity and transparency around who we really are and how we really go together. How does that really look? I do think that if women were inspired to find ways to understand their urges and follow them earlier in life or later in life, whenever, I do think the world would be a different place. And I think what's interesting is that when there are women around you following their urges, what that can bring up for many women is fear. It's like, what are you doing? You're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to be that. You're going to lose your safety in the patriarchy. And I think that is really revolutionary and also really scary because a lot of us, again, don't have communities of women encouraging us to follow our urges. We have a lot of communities around us that encourage us to follow the shoulds, the responsibilities, the hats and roles that we play, right? I also wonder if we were all allowed to follow our urges, how biologically and socially different would we actually be? So if you want to test this out for yourself, here's what I'm going to invite you to do. If you are an EMDR therapist and you are thinking about what interweaves to use with your patients, I want you to see what happens when you just go with the body. Redirect your client If they're talking with their cognitions, because we've programmed them to do that to a large extent in processing, to say to them, let's notice your body. What are you noticing in your body? That's step 1. Okay, do a set. Step 2, I'm noticing a chest tightness. Okay, let's be curious about that. Okay, do a set. Step 3, is there an urge that goes with this feeling? Let's be curious. Can we process that? Step 4, can we follow the urge? Can we play it out in your processing? And guess what? A lot of parts of us that want to do something, they get satisfied just doing that in processing. I have had people on my couch, like burning things down, killing other people, like all sorts of things they cannot do in real life. And guess what? When we allow that part in their body to notice the urge and play it out, they feel neutral, right? They feel a neutrality that part got satisfied and it's done. But sometimes when we discover these parts and we process them, they want to live outside in the real world. And that's when things get really cool for people's lives changing, right? I love also just kind of adding on to that, this idea of inviting them to play out an urge, follow it into kind of a future template fantasy, and noticing if they will play it out or not. Right? Because I hear a lot of people saying things like, oh, I can't do that. Well, you're just doing it in your imagination. So stakes are pretty low. But if they have a part come in that's blocking the urge, which has been doing that for a long time, right? That part's been saying, no, don't feel that. No, don't notice that. No, don't want that. No, don't follow that. No, 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 no. Then I like to have them play out. Let that part win. Let that part that says no, 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 play that part out, that part winning. And then they do a set with the no, 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 and then just suppress. And then they have awareness of the whole system that's been happening inside of them forever. And then what happens? A couple of things. They're like, well, that's messed up. I don't want to live like that. Let's redesign it. Oh, that's like the best part of my job. When someone says, look at my system, let's redesign it. I want to have more choices with my urges. Oh, it's the best. Noticing the part of us that says no, 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 no. That's the best. That's when real control and choice and power comes online. And then from there is a responsible thing happening in the therapy office, right? This is like the insurance policy for decision making. This is the safety net and kind of checkpoint, right, of trying things out there, following urges out there. Because if I've played out leaving my husband in therapy, and that feels great, I might feel comfortable doing that in real life. If I've played out growing 2 businesses in therapy and following that urge, it makes it easier to do it outside. It just does, right? It creates a smoothness and a neutrality to do that. But if I play out something that I can't do in real life, right? Like play out the part of you that never wants to work again and just goes to the beach on vacation. Play that out. That part gets satiated in therapy because there's not actually space at the current time in my actual real life to do that, because that would be irresponsible. I wouldn't be able to pay for my home, pay for my children, pay for health insurance, right? If people understood that they could do this with EMDR or brain spotting, there'd be a lot more responsible decisions when it comes to following urges. There'd be a lot more intentionality about what happens in midlife, right? Because the part that's like, I'm going to follow this urge no matter what, and I'm going to burn it all down, and I'm going to, do this to my kids and family, and I'm going to, again, not wrong or bad, but sometimes these choices, because they've been no, 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 don't feel thought out sometimes, right? But if you've been to EMDR therapy and you've played out these urges and you have neutrality about your choices and it feels like it makes sense to follow the urge in real life, we get to do it with no regrets, like a confidence and a quiet peacefulness to it. And we get to really fully enjoy it that way. We get to really enjoy the urge when we have got intentional decision-making around it because of playing it out in EMDR. I hope that even if you're not in EMDR therapy and you're just a woman walking around with a body with somatic sensations, that you might practice trying on these questions, right? When your voice is full of all the messaging and the branding and the shoulds and the da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and the noise, wouldn't it be cool if you just were like, what's happening in my body? And wouldn't it be cool if you noticed a body sensation and asked yourself, what's the urge that goes with that feeling? And wouldn't it be cool if you allowed yourself 60 seconds, 90 seconds to allow that part of you to follow that urge so that you could feel satiated, so that you could feel more clear about what you need and want, right? To the mom in the morning getting the kids ready for school, feeling a chest tightness, noticing that, asking, what does this part want? This part wants to quit. This is too much. This is too much stress. Getting my kids ready for school again, forever. I'm not even going to school, right? Convincing them to go to school. Noticing this part wants to quit, run away, and rest. Gives us compassion for that part of us that's feeling that, which is part of our internal safety system for self-soothing and self-regulation. And it informs our decisions. I will go to work today, and maybe I'm going to leave an hour of my time before a school pickup for me to sit in my backyard and look at the hummingbirds and rest. Because that part of me in my body told me this morning I wanted it. And I let myself play it out, and it felt pretty good. So I'm going to honor that because that's what I truly want, and that's what I truly deserve. I hope this conversation has given you more permission to notice your urges and follow them and play them out in a way that makes sense for you. We can always do experiments in our minds, following our body and our urges before we do them in real life. And this step can really help us feel safe and responsible before we make big changes around us. And sometimes those big changes are really important. So I wish you all the best in your self-discovery, in your own urges and body sensations. And I am excited for you about what you will find and how you make space to get those parts and urges satisfied so that your life feels like it belongs to you. And with all that being said, I look forward to being together next time. In the meantime, be well.